Voters in 16 states and American Samoa will cast ballots for their party's tour presidential nomination. While President Biden faces no serious competition, his margin of victory could shed light on the eagerness of Democrats to check his name in November. And maybe the same could be said for Donald Trump, who has consistently lost 30 to 40% of the Republican vote in early primary states. Joining us now to discuss it all is Democratic Governor J.B. Pritzker of Illinois. Welcome, sir.
It's a treat having you here. Look, you've been bringing the fire on behalf of President Biden and the effort that's in front of the country, quite honestly, given the menace that is represented by Donald Trump. I want to show you, though, some polling out there from the New York Times Siena poll on the general election. Right now, Biden is trailing former President Trump by 43 to 48. Also, you have conversations out there where you've got Mr. Trump is winning 97% of those who say that they voted for him 4 years ago, while you're looking at Biden pulling only 83% of his 2020 votes. Talk to us a little bit about the work that you see right now in sort of moving the needle within that orbit of influence for the president from 83 to higher 90s. And what does it say right now about where the country is relative to the president and why they look at him, given the strength of the economy, his handling of some pretty gnarly matters, the way he has, and they're like, well, that's just not enough.
Well, let's be clear that Super Tuesday is going to be the starter pistol for the general election. We have not yet seen the contrast really put forward to the American people, and it is a stark contrast. We're talking about a president who has stood up for the middle class every single day of his presidency versus a guy who, frankly, gave huge tax cuts to the wealthiest Americans. A president who has cut the cost of insulin for people to $35 and who has made health care more affordable for people versus a guy who wants to take millions of Americans' health care away from them. And a president who stands up for a woman's right to choose and for our freedoms. And a guy who put 3 zealots onto the Supreme Court who have taken away a woman's right to choose and many other freedoms. We just talked about voting rights, yet another. So we've got real contrast here, but people really haven't seen that because you've had this battle on the Republican side where 30, 40, 50% of Republicans aren't voting for Donald Trump in these primaries. And now the battle will be joined. I think on Tuesday, you're going to have finally, again, the starter pistol, and we're going to see them off to the races.
So you're not, I just think, Governor, there's a lot of consternation and hand-wringing about the polls. And it's like, oh, this poll says this poll says that. And I'm like, okay, but what are the people going to do? And we are so happy you're here with us today, but I know you are going home soon. To Illinois, you're going to go back and be with the people of your state. You were with some of the people in Virginia last night. What are you hearing from not the political professionals that do this every day, not the political reporters? What are you hearing from the people? What are they saying?
They want to know, what are these two candidates going to do for them, right? That we know that democracy is on the line, and many of us talk about this every day. But frankly, that's a lot among the insider class. What people want to know is, how are you helping me at the kitchen table? How are you helping me pay the bills? Remember, we have now the lowest unemployment rate in 50 years, 14 million jobs created by this president. We've seen true advancement for people all across America. You know, you walk out your front door and you're going to probably see one of 40,000 infrastructure projects that our president brought to us. Remember the other guy, he talked about infrastructure week. We're going to have infrastructure decade because of our current president. So I do think people also want to see empathy in their president. And what a stark contrast between Joe Biden and a guy who makes fun of people who are disabled, who attacks our veterans. And those are things that need to, be reminded to people in their living rooms, in their neighborhoods all across America. And that's going to happen over the next 8 months.
Governor, speaking of that contrast, we saw some of it on full display this past week at the U.S.-Mexico border. I want you to take a listen to what President Biden had to say, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
Folks, the bipartisan border security deal is a win for the American people. The majority of Democrats and Republicans in both houses support this legislation until someone came along and said, don't do that, it'll benefit the incumbent. That's a hell of a way to do business in America for such a serious problem.
So it is pretty telling, Governor, that I want to talk to the governor of Illinois about something that is happening at the U.S.-Mexico border, because this in many ways has manifested in your state, one of the states with the biggest increases in immigration court cases in this country is yours. You said, this caught my eye during your annual budget address, we don't have any clear idea how long Governor Abbott intends to hold the nation hostage. Relevant, of course, because the governor has been shipping migrants to your state via buses, which I am told by advocates, you don't know when they're coming, you don't know who is on them. It makes it extraordinarily difficult to prepare and to advocate for these migrants. Speak to me about this. What do you do when you don't know how a governor in another state is going to continue to treat this crisis?
We reelect somebody who actually cares about doing something about this. Remember, the American people want their president and their leaders to get together and come to some bipartisan compromise. And that's what Joe Biden did and what congressional Democrats did. The Republicans also came to the table, and there was an agreement. And you know who blew that agreement up? Donald Trump. Now, he puts party over country, puts himself over country when he blows up what could have been a good border deal to stop the flow of people across our border and the asylum seekers. Now, we need comprehensive immigration reform, and Democrats have been at the table for 40 years on this issue. Republicans every single time have blown it up, and they did it once again at the behest of Donald Trump. I think that tells you a lot about this election. If you want to actually change what's going on at the border, you want to elect Joe Biden again, because he's the one who's willing to actually come to an agreement about it.
Governor, I want to continue with that, though, a little bit, because I think it's an important narrative, given how, what Alicia said about the context of this. You have the governor of Texas, who has such disregard for human beings that he puts them on a bus, lies to them to get them on a bus, and ships them up. Now, they're not American citizens, so he feels he can do what he will with them. Is there an effort among the governors to collectively push back on this? Because I think the strength of what we see here with rogue behavior by certain people, certain governors, is that there is no national outcry. There is no coalition of governors from other states, whether they're impacted directly or indirectly by immigration and migration issues, to say what you're doing is inhumane. Stop it. And either turn the buses back or somehow enjoin him from doing what he's doing collectively. I just don't see that. So I hear a lot of the rhetoric around this, and everybody's outraged, at least on television. But practically, what can a governor like you, a Governor Westmore in Maryland, a Governor Youngkin in Virginia do collectively to tell a colleague governor, your behavior is reprehensible, and it's illiberal, and it's un-American. Stop it.
Well, border and immigration policy have to be made by the Congress and the president. And again, we had that at the table, and it could have been done.
But the shipping of migrants is not a federal question. It's a state question. He's acting in his capacity as governor of his state. There's no federal conversational law on that. What he's doing is based on his own personal action as governor.
No doubt.
So you're not going to, a federal bill is not going to address that question.
No, but it begins to address the question of people who are coming across the border. Listen, I sympathize with every state that is receiving asylum seekers and even undocumented immigrants who can't manage those. And I suppose that is what Governor Abbott is trying to tell everybody by shipping folks across the country. But what we've seen is that the inhumane way in which he's done it, first of all, it's been completely political. You asked about governors speaking out and telling him what we, believe. Kathy Hochul's been doing that. I've been doing that. Jared Polis has been doing that. We're receiving those buses. And I can tell you, people are getting off the buses in the middle of winter when it was minus 30 degrees without a jacket, without shoes. These are folks who are wearing sandals, right. T-shirts, right? And they've been sent hungry as well. And without regard to whether or not we have enough shelter in these cities, he's simply aiming those buses where he thinks there will be maximum political impact. We're managing through it. We'll manage. But the reality is that the border and immigration reform has to be something that's dealt with at the federal level. And once again, Donald Trump is the one standing in the way. It's not Joe Biden. Donald Trump stopped us from having that compromise passed. We've got to recognize that and throw that back at Donald Trump and make sure that the American public recognizes that the inhumane treatment that Governor Abbott is showing the nation is the kind of policy that Republicans believe in. And I don't think that that's what the American public believes in.
No, I don't think it's what they believe in either. But it is, in fact, what is happening. I think, to your point, calling it out, but also holding the people responsible, i.e. Congress, for their inaction, Republicans in Congress, Donald Trump, and Governor Abbott for what he is doing is quite important. What most concerns you about this election as we barrel towards 2024, November 2024?
Well, we've got to remind people that if they don't get out to vote, this election is lost.
So turnout is what most concerns.
Turnout is enormously important. And I think that the message about who Donald Trump is, reminding people what the 4 years that he had in office were really about, right? The attacks on people while he was president, the reduction of health care under him, the giveaways to big pharma, right? When we really need to expand health care, he's handing big, tax breaks to big pharma and, frankly, making it harder for Americans to get the kind of medications that they need. So I don't think that we've really made the case yet because we haven't been in the general election yet. Too much distraction in the Republican primary. It's time finally to take this case to the American people about who Donald Trump really is and remind them that what we want is someone who wears empathy on his sleeve, someone who actually is standing up for the middle class and not somebody who's attacking people, again, who are disabled, veterans. This is somebody who has no character, Donald Trump. And I don't think that the American people, when they finally look at these two candidates, are going to choose that.
Well, I hope you're right, because it's a struggle. It's a struggle.
If it makes you feel any better, I have already put evac on alert. He's ready to go if it comes to that. General, I can assure you.
Hey, General, let me into the war room to see you, so I had to hack my way onto this frequency.
This better be critical, Wheelie.
Sir, come on, what is it now, please? Okay, couple of things. I'm running low on the dough. I was thinking about taking a couple of months sick leave, maybe starting today. And, oh yeah. I intercepted a transmission from Megatron.
Then send it through.
Yes, sir, right away, sir. And so I was so damn good on the other stuff.
This is your last warning, insects. Relinquish what remains of the Allspark.
So who's the insect? You? What? Who's the insect?
Protect you. They were defeated on our world, and we will defeat them here.
This was just a diversion. Security teams bring up. Rabbit, she's already inside. Deeds! Give me an update on that reserve. Boss readiness. What was his name? What was it?
Evac, sir.
Right, evac.
She's right in front.
We are facing a heavy, sustained attack. They appear to be after the Allspark. General! General! Need to evac immediately. Evac. Hold on. National security advisory. Stay down. Check it out. There is a celebration. The amateurs on a suicide mission.